Hello, I'm Eagle Gardens 1 on Instagram, and this is fucking talking shit with Eagle, episode 731. Hopefully, you guys have had a great Saturday. I've had a pretty good day myself. Got another great guest for us this evening, the Pharmacy Seed Network. How you doing, my friend? You want to tell us how you doing, and of course, where we can find you?
Yeah, man, I'm doing good. And I got a YouTube channel, the Pharmacy Seeds Network, FARMACY, and let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. I'm on Instagram as Reboot Agriculture. I'm on Twitter as Reboot Agriculture, something like that, but I really don't tweet much. And that's basically it for social media stuff.
Well, that kind of makes me wonder, why don't more cannabis people use Twitter? I don't see it to be like a big cannabis platform for some reason. Or at least I don't use it either. I
I don't
don't
know, but I
tweet it.
do. I do remember maybe I don't know 5 or 10 years ago they announced they were going to enter everything on Twitter into the Library of Congress. And I just remember thinking to myself, well, that could be incriminating later on.
Right on. So, what'd you bring to smoke this evening?
I was smoking some Dosey here, Dosey Doe. You ever smoke Dosey?
Yeah, I have. It's good stuff. Nice choice. Nice choice.
Yeah, I like
I'll
it very much.
be smoking a little bit of blue line pie from Smiley. That's
Ah,
what I'll
nice.
be.
I've never tried that.
It's pretty good. It's pretty damn good. Nice. In
Very
fact, I
nice.
should probably get to rolling one up right now as I ask that first question. When and where? When did cannabis come into your life? Either first time you've seen it or smoked it.
Well, let's see. First time I saw it. Well, first time I smoked it. I guess the first time I really saw it was way later. First time I smoked it was my brother. He'd come home from college, and he'd been smoking even when he was in high school. Um, and he rolled a joint when I was like 14. He was like, "Come on, man, let's go smoke this." And the first time I smoked, I didn't get high, but we watched Pink Floyd, The Wall. And then a couple nights later, we smoked again, and we smoked a bowl. And I actually got high that time, and we watched something else, Pink Floyd, Roger Waters, something like that. That was great. And then I didn't smoke again for a while, maybe another 6 or 8 months. And then I was down at his apartment that he got when he came back from college. And, we hit the bong. And man, I can remember just sitting on his kitchen floor, laughing my ass off, eating pasta and just rolling, laughing over something funny. So that was my first intro to it. Loved it immediately, of course.
Yeah, I was a fan from the get myself. Now I gotta ask because I've got a running theory going on. Um, so you say you didn't necessarily get high the first time. Uh, was it around you prior to that? I mean, had you seen it around parents or anything like that? Anything close to you?
No, no. Parents didn't smoke. Grew up in a extreme like Christian family kind of thing. They'd have a glass of wine or a couple of beers once in a while, but no real alcohol use or abuse. No weed around at all. So that was my first intro to it. And before that, I'd always heard all the stories. Oh, it'll rot your head, make you crazy, make you stupid, and all that BS. um, but after I tried it, I was like, I don't think I'd buy any of that BS.
That's that makes me feel a little better because there's been a few exceptions to the rule, but not many. I find so far the theory stands pretty good. And like I said, there has been one or two exceptions to the rule, but it seems like the folks that I've talked to that necessarily don't get high that first time, it's not around You know what I mean? They haven't been around it when in their younger age, or it just wasn't around them, which makes me kind of think that it's the CB1, CB2 receptors are something that's got to be like wore down. It's almost like a barrier or cherry that has to be popped. You know what I mean? You
I
have, what do you think?
I was thinking about that earlier today, actually, because I was thinking about coming on tonight. I was like, I knew like it's one of the first questions you asked the first time you smoked. And I was just like pondering that, like, well, why didn't I get high? And I know other people have said the same thing, not the first time. And I can't remember. I hadn't thought to ask them any of that background stuff to see whether they'd ever been exposed to it or not. But it makes me think you might be right there. Maybe you need like that first time you don't get anything out of it because it has to activate the cannabinoid receptors or something, or maybe your body goes from the natural cannabinoid receptors to also being able to accept an external input. That's a really good thought. I like that theory.
Thank you. So you say you kind of fell in love with it there once she did kick in, once that barrier was beaten down there. How did it transpire from there? Was it like a once in a while thing? Uh where'd it go from
Yeah,
there?
I went to smoking, usually on the weekends, whenever I could, I'd get a bag from my brother. He was like a small time, bag slinger for a while. And so I get a bag from him. The one year we tried to grow a couple plants, and we didn't know what the hell we were doing. And, we got these tiny little things, but there were a couple buds on them. He was like, I'm not going to smoke that shit. You can have it. I stretched that for a couple of months, just a little bit into a bowl at night because I still had a low tolerance at the time, So a lot of riding my bike, a lot of listening to Pink Floyd, a lot of time stoned and thinking about how to grow weed and, how to learn that process and stuff. So I don't know, does that even answer the question you asked?
Yeah, pretty much. So I guess you kind of back up a little bit. So what made you decide to drop those first seeds? And well, where are we talking about, like in like age wise?
I think I was maybe 15 or 16, and he's probably early 20s, and we wanted to grow our own and not have to buy it. And of course, there was always the dream goal of like grow a huge amount and like make a huge profit, but there's also the risk side of that. So, they were just bag seeds at the time, but we had talked to people who grew, and they'd always said genetics is a huge part of it. If you want to grow something really good, you got to start with good seed. So we were working on getting seeds, and this is early 90s. You didn't have what you do today, like where you could just go online and order something. It was like you had to know somebody who could talk to somebody in Amsterdam and get them shipped and all that kind of shit. So we just grew some bag seed, did a shit job, learned the lessons. Later on, we did some 5-gallon buckets. We hung them up on the tops of cedar trees to keep them away from the deer, because we had a grower friend who had plants like 4 or 5 feet tall, put them out in like May, and the deer ate them right down to a nub on them. Had another grower friend that had plants like ready to flower, put them out, and they mowed the field. We lost the whole plot. So we were trying to avoid animals and all that kind of shit, and learn how to grow at the same time. And my brother got a hold of a couple books, and we started doing some reading and that kind of stuff. And that's when we started to learn more. But I don't know. I guess that kind of answers your question, does it? Or I'm a little stoned. I took some edibles before too.
Nice. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So I guess what was the first grow like? Was it soil? And I guess how long did you grow in that manner before things kind of switched up?
Yeah, it was soil. I remember we tried with some like I don't know, it was like ag weight bag soil or something the first time, and that's where we got those little tiny plants. We had them in small containers. We just stuck them out in the field. We didn't water them enough. We didn't know what nutrients to give them. Um, and later on, when we did the 5 gallon buckets, we got some nice compost, and those actually got reasonably high. I forget what happened to those though. I think we did harvest those, but it still wasn't much yield. But buds didn't get very dense or big. But it was like a degree of success. Um, and later on, well, my brother started doing some indoor stuff, and I helped him with that. We set up some lights, and we got some more of that soil from a local compost source. And then like halfway through the grow, we had a big argument with his girlfriend, and she threatened to call the cops on him. So we had to rip everything down and throw it out. So that sucks. We learned lots of rough lessons along the way.
Yeah, unfortunately, and some of the women, well, may hate this, but the girlfriend has always been the wild card in hustle. That's for sure. Not necessarily just fucking growing, but hustling. You always had to be
Yeah.
careful of that argument.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I've seen that ruin a few grows and other fun things. And then what? So then, my brother ended up passing in a car accident, so we ended up not growing together anymore. But I always tried over the years, I would take some bag seed from something I got from a friend, throw it in, and try to, get something to go. And I got a couple of successful years where I had a couple plants, but nothing major. But it was just nice having your own smoke that you knew wasn't, brickweed from Mexico or whatever. Yeah, and then more recently, I started learning organics and started gearing more toward like farming related stuff. And so that's actually helped me evolve my understanding of soil health and nutrition and plant nutrition and health. And so kind of like between cannabis and farming and studying soil science, I've learned a lot. And I find that like cannabis has been a great teacher as far as learning how to grow a plant and how to like look at a plant and assess what it needs or wants or whether it's happy or not.
I agree. I 100% agree. So how things progress? I mean, have you always stayed in the soil, or have you kind of switched it up and moved, changed your methods, and learned a little bit along the way?
I did dance off into hydroponics a little bit, both with with vegetable growing and cannabis. I found it could really perform well, but I also found that you had to do a lot of monitoring on pH and water changing, and like I found that it took a lot of extra effort in soil. If you did the right amendments, you didn't have to constantly be tweaking and adjusting things. I found the soils like very forgiving, and it really kind of lets you focus more on how is the plant doing overall. And but with that, of course, you have to have a more long-term perspective because soil doesn't react at the speed hydroponics does. But I did mess around with aeroponics and not like deep water culture, but like trickle culture basically. And they were fun to play with, and they were great tools for learning about growing also. But I really like the flavor and the quality that you get from well-grown soil, for sure.
I think there'd be a ton of people that would fall into that line. I agree with you there. So are you indoor or outdoor these days?
These days I'm outdoor. I I brought a couple of plants in just to re-veg. Actually, that dosi dough came from a bag seed from a friend, and just happened to get the seed to germinate. Happened to be a female. It did well, and I just was like, you know what? I'm going to re-veg that. So I brought it back in under a 400 watt HPS. And I took a cutting of something, a Black Lime Reserve F99 that I'm trying to re-veg to. But other than that, mostly indoors, basically just geared to put stuff outdoor. Springtime, I get some starts going, and then like as soon as I can, I get it out and out in that real sun and earth.
Nothing wrong with that. That's how you can get the trees. Get the trees for the outdoor.
Yeah, especially if you get started early. I got started late this year, but I'm hoping to change that this coming season.
What have been some of the genetics that you've grown throughout the year?
Oh man, I played with all sorts of shit. Super Silver Haze is one of my favorites. I'm big on sativas. Durban Poison was great. I've grown a lot of autoflower stuff. I've done some little bit of my own breeding, mostly pollen chucking with autoflowers. That's a great learning tool to learn about breeding and genetics and environment and all that kind of stuff. I have one strain actually that I've messed around with and kind of refined down to. It's a light sensitive sativa. It's basically like a mix of Durban Poison, Gorilla Gold #3, Cinderella 99, the Brothers Grimm version, and Purple Kush. It's like a coffee pheno. And that's the one I've been playing with that I still have seed from that I didn't lose in all sorts of catastrophes through life. And that one's great. I just made some edibles with that, and it's a nice, clean, crisp working buzz. And that's what I really like in a buzz for the most part. I like to, go build a project and build that creativity up a little bit.
Right on. So is that, in your opinion, gonna be the answer to the holdback for the sativas? I mean, a lot of growers just don't, and I fall in that line. I fall in that line. I'm not gonna, exclude myself for that. A lot of growers would like to have that sativa, but we just don't have the time and the space for the long-term flower time there. So do you think that that will be the savior for the long-term sativa, will be to kind of keep a pure sativa, but kind of keep it try to make it in an auto form that you're saying?
I think something in between that. I mean, I've grown and seen some autos that were absolutely fucking impressive, to be honest. But I still like the control that you get from a photo period. But the thing that I found that really falls between those two that's awesome for short season, if you want to still get that real crisp sativa buzz that can be hard to get in even an auto, is a light sensitive strain. It's basically, you take like an early strain like Gorilla Gold, and then you cross it with a sativa, and then you back cross against that sativa again and again, and then you get this fast flowering, basically 75% of the genetics of the mother that you're trying to copy. And I think that's really the way to do it. The problem is when you infuse anything with autoflowering into it, eventually over time, the F4, 5, 6, 7, 10 are going to end up autoflowered on you, or at least a huge portion of them are. So then it's a matter of like, do you go back and select out of that, or do you reproduce every so often with controlled pollination? I don't know what the long-term answer is, but certainly like the difference between 12 weeks to flower, well, I don't get to harvest till end of November here, and done flowering by September 15th is huge, both for weather and for, time. But I don't have a great answer for you, but I like light sensitive, I guess is the bottom line of that.
Yeah. So yeah, that'd be nice to see something like that, because I've said this a lot lately with the not necessarily, well, I guess, yeah, muddled up genetic pool that we have now, that's pretty much either indica or just kind of a hybrid. I really believe that unfortunately it's going to be the sativa that brings back a good dollar, you know.
Yeah,
Before I
yeah.
don't think it was, even possible because you obviously you can flip a room twice to that one long time sativa there, but I think consumers are going to want something that stands fucking out. I mean, hands down, and I think that's going to help the market, or at least the sativa will
I
hold some value.
I gotta hope so, man. Because like this summer, like trying to get a sativa, I ended up having to go to Massachusetts and go to a dispensary, and I'm paying $600 an ounce, and it's 75 or 80% sativa, but it's not a pure like up ripping sativa. And I'm like, even that is like, that's a lot of money to spend for. I just want to get high the right way, the way that tunes to me. Like everybody's got their thing, but this is my thing. Like, so it's like, so you have to grow it yourself. So that, yeah, I'm hoping that something will influence that market and we'll see more sativas evolve and more people be aware of them. I mean, so many people that smoke that aren't like hardcore smokers, like you ask them, what do you like, sativa or indica? They don't even know what do you mean? You got to explain it to them. So I get how much of it is awareness, I guess, is a question too, right?
So I guess what were the first genetics you started to play with as far as like breeding?
Oh man. Well, a breeder named Mossy out of Spain sent me some stuff called gems, Gem. They're like basically a super Afghani, between 75 and 115 days to harvest autoflower. Pretty cold hardy, a lot of purples in them and stuff. So I kind of learned some of the basics of that, from her and a few other people through a forum. And then it kind of evolved from there. I ended up doing some testing for other breeders on that same forum. And then they started sharing genetics with me. And then it was like, I like this, I like that. Those two combined might be cool. Let's try that. And kind of evolved from there.
Yeah. What has been some of your favorite creations so far?
I have to say, Auto Cinderella 99 was a really awesome one. Those were 90 days to maturity, and they were the Brothers Grimm Cinderella 99 and one other. I think there's three different Cinderella 99 phenos or strains. But they were 90 days to maturity, very pineapple-y smelling, very fruity, and super sativa buzz, awesome like eye buzz. And I think I got like a quarter pound a piece off of them, and that's seed to maturity. So I was really impressed with both their yield and quality.
Are you doing your breeding indoors or outdoors?
Uh, Started indoors, and everything in the past 10 years or so has been outdoor, just lack of controlled space for that sort of thing. So I'll capture pollen from the male I want in a paper bag, shake it into a branch on a dry day. Seal the bag, label it, stick it in the freezer, wait till the female I want to pollinate ready, catch it on a dewy night, put the bag over it, shake it on, tie it on, spray it down with water. The next day I take the bag off, and then I get just that branch has been pollinated with just that pollen. So, that works.
Right on. So it's an outdoor male then.
Yeah, yeah,
Right on.
typically.
So are you kind of keeping him as a stud for multiple projects, or is it selected every year?
It's selected with each generation. Yeah. So it's like you got to find the female you want to select, to find a male that you hope can match that by smell, taste, smoke, etc., and then cross it. And some years you only get a couple males, so you're stuck with a few choices. But it is what it is.
So how is that value or equalate in the end there? Do you find that after multiple different males there outdoors that the end product is pretty repeatable?
Yeah, pretty well. There's still definitely some phenotype, variation. There's still like we're at F4, F5 in this now since the last crosses were made, and there's still like a few that come out super early auto flowering, and then the majority of them are in the earlier light sensitive, and then there's a couple that are later light sensitive, and I just keep targeting those later ones, looking for that. Let's get into middle of September, but not go too far beyond that. So I don't know, it's kind of a dance. At the end of the day, I'm just kind of playing.
Right on, right on. I'm becoming more and more of a fan of outdoor breeding, although many outdoor people that grow outdoor may hate that idea because of the possibility of getting contaminated and everything. But I think you're offering a more hardier stock there because the environment is kind of packed into the toolbox of the genetics for that seed. I kind of feel that this wave of indoor breeding and repeated, as you go down the generations, breeding indoors could possibly be weakening the genetics. We may be finding, the things we like that in it, you know what I mean, as far as chirp production, bud and that. But we may be weakening it for environmental pressures, viruses and stuff like that would normally be packed in that gene, you know what I mean, in that seed from the environmental pressures from the outdoors. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And you have to consider that growing outdoors in the soil is literally plugged into an entirely different environmental system. And let's not forget, you can take any gene set, and depending on what environment you express that gene set in, it's going to express itself differently. So if you can maximize that environment and maximize the availability of every energy and nutritional source that gene needs, it'll replicate much more efficiently and effectively and express its full genetics. Whereas if you take it and put it in an environment where, we don't know what we're missing in sunlight spectrum when we go and throw something under an HPS light. We know we're missing some spectrum, but there's stuff that we probably haven't even studied and don't understand yet too. So I think outdoor definitely toughens the plant and it interacts it with that biological environment. Let's not forget, both on the surface of the leaf and the stem, and also in the root, in the soil, we have all this biology that are doing this job of interchanging between the plant and the medium, whether it's the soil or the air. And if you get that biology tuned right, you'd be amazed what a gene can express itself as. I mean, even the corn, right? Like you take a corn that's normally 200 bushels, that has the genetic potential, if it could express all of its genes, to produce 1,100 bushels an acre. Think of the yield gains if you focused on that nutrition and the biology that supports that nutrition and optimize that environment.
Yeah, I do believe, like you're saying, that again, back to, I believe it is being pre-packed, all that it's pre-programming the immune system of the plant. You know what I mean? I think it's
Yeah.
all pre-programmed into that seed. And yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know I've heard John Kempf talk about even how like growing a GMO crop instead of like an organically grown crop, and soil can actually change the biological profile of that soil and change the genome. And there's even gene transfer to crops that are grown there, sequentially after that. So it's interesting field of study. I'd love to see more data and information on it because it is so complex. But at the end of the day, if we just remember, it's a system as a whole. And anytime we tweak or mess with any part of that system, we're going to affect the whole system in some way.
So I guess let's back up a little bit. When did the love of the soil kind of really develop? I mean, was it through the cultivation of just cannabis, or was it, through cultivation of other plants that you went, I need to dig in deep?
Well, I've always had a love for soil, and my family's always had and been around farming in some form or fashion. So, I grew up with a garden and being around farms and animals, and my grandfather had a farm and grew his own food, and so there's a deep connection there for me for sure. But having grown up doing that, and then kind of having focused on weed, in 2013 I heard a talk from John Kemp from Advancing Eco Agriculture, and he was talking about nutrition and talking about pesticides and how those were affecting us, and it really lit my fire, my interest of the scientific side of it, because he really went into it. And so I started, at the time I was doing some organic farming, but I wanted to improve that and make it better. And so I kind of started from there. I started working on my own nutrition and health, and I realized the effects I could have on that. And I started playing with, tweaking and tuning soil and learning to work with that system. And the more results I got, the more exciting it became. So I got into it more and more from there. And I had a small homestead for a while there, actually about 10 years. But then I moved last year out to BC, got married, came back, divorced. Long story short. But what I want to do is get back into farming in some form or fashion. I don't know what the next chapter of that's going to be, but I definitely want to keep having that influence and that interaction with the soil and the plants. I love that. That is so therapeutic.
How are your thoughts on starting off on a new plot of land there? You know what I mean? How big of a task is that? I mean, what is the land like that? Are you talking about on the property that you're on now? Is that a thing, or would you have to purchase some land near you to kind of get the dream going again?
I kind of want to purchase, but I'm thinking about maybe leasing something, and maybe even leasing machinery so I could do a bigger operation than before. Before I had about 2.5 acres in production, but it was all hand stuff, rototiller, hand planted, hand harvested and all that. I kind of want to scale something up and do something a little more productive and interesting. But land around here is crazy. I mean, upstate New York, 10 grand an acre is not a crazy price around here to pay for land. I don't know where that's going to go, but I've talked to a couple of people who have land, and they said, hey, if you want to work something out, we could. So I may look into that too. Just kind of recouping from all the moving and stuff and getting my feet back under me at the moment.
I can understand that. So when you're looking at a plot like that, how do you kind of really assess that, what's there? And I heard you mention, and I guess depending on who you're talking to, the dreaded rototiller there. How has your opinion changed about, flipping the soil and busting up the network and all that good stuff these days? Are you still Would you still grab the rototiller or grab that plow?
I wouldn't grab a plow, but the rototiller, for certain stuff, I would. But I say that with the caveat of for the soil that I'm working in that needs to be tilled. Excuse me. If it doesn't need it, I wouldn't. But there is, excuse me. Sorry, that last one got me. There is a difference between soil that is, highly oxidized and soil that is not oxidized. And sometimes it's good to oxidize a little bit to change that biology and terrain of that soil a little bit to establish a crop. Ultimately, what would I do if I had it my way and I had, roller crimpers and, everything I wanted for properly planting cover crops and then roller crimping them in and then seeding through? No, I'd never till the soil if I could. But it depends what you're planting, and you got to work with the tools that you have and on the terrain and soil that you have. And sometimes you got to do something to break up that soil to get your germinating seed established. And am I against that? No. Do I want to go and tear the soil up all the time? No, I'd rather let those fungal networks establish and keep mulching on top of that with organic material, protect that soil from ultraviolet light and sunlight, and let those microbial communities grow and establish and stay in place. But you can play that balance line too between till a little bit in the top and still leave that soil profile underneath intact too. So that's my 2 cents on it.
So let's say you do have to kind of flip that soil. What would be your steps to kind of rebuild that network of mycelia there on a larger scale? I mean, on an agriculture type,
Well, I mean, first, let's remember we're always trying to build that network all the time. So, we're already doing amendments like putting down high carbon stuff, fish and crab and lobster shell type stuff, cold seaweed complexes, that kind of stuff, just to get, all the trace minerals and enzymes present in the soil. And then inoculants, always inoculants. When I plant a crop, I always try to make sure that crop gets inoculated as I'm planting. What I've used historically came from advancing eco agriculture and Tanio products, and it's a combination of BioCoat Gold, Biogenesis, and Spectrum. It used to be Spectrum Extra. I think it's Spectrum DS now. But those in combination with some Sea Shield from advancing eco agriculture and some Rejuvenate, which is like a sugar and like humate complex. And that really makes those communities just blow up. So I find you can do like a scratch till, plant your seed, go through and do a foliar drench spray with your inoculants and your nutritional drench, and then maybe irrigate in if it's dry or let a rainstorm drive it in. And man, it lights right up. And it's about having that biology in and on that seed right from the get-go and making sure that trace mineral nutrition is present to support that gene's expression right from early on. Because the earliest point is the most critical point of influence. You have less effect on yield as the seed gets older.
Great answer. Thank you for that. So what what would be your first choice? I mean, as far as would your market play what you plant there, would it be more generated to, the environment, what the land itself, or would your choice for what you're putting in be market?
It'd be more about the land itself, if you got a soil that's good for growing a particular crop and maybe not so much for another, to make the amendments and adjustments to tweak it to make it grow a crop that you could just grow something else easier. I really want to do like different combinations of grains, organic grains, and then develop those seed crop qualities high enough that as I go successively, I build that genetic capability up and build protein content and all that kind of stuff. But it's a long process, and you got to have the equipment to manage that.
So I was wondering when, as you were speaking there, about like rebuilding the soil, re-inoculating the soil with microbes and everything. I couldn't help but wonder, even if left alone, uh, how long it would take itself to kind of repair. Because as we talked about earlier, it is kind of always present. You're always breathing in some kind of fungi, some type of microbes. It is always present on our food and leaf uh, surfaces like that. So, how long do you think it from naturally floating around and being on the top of the soil, being rained in, pushed in that way, would it naturally take to kind of kick itself back off after a disturbance like that?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I think it's more about the environment, like in the surface of the soil, right? So you think about undisturbed soil has all sorts of debris on it. And so there's a degree of protection from sunlight. There's a degree of moisture that's held in place for that protects that biology. So I guess it's like if there was something intact to protect the biology, probably not long. But here you have this bare soil that's exposed directly to UV, infrared, high levels of oxygen, and some of those soil bacteria are anaerobic bacteria. So they're not going to do well in a high oxygen environment. And then inside the soil profile, if those bacteria and fungi and all those microbial pieces are present, soil particles can actually hold entire microbe communities. So I think it could respawn if there was the moisture was present and there was enough protection. But then it's a matter of what's on the surface of the soil, because it does come down to like that same thing of all biology, right? We need a certain amount of shelter, and we need a certain environment in order to survive, and then a more tuned environment, we can even thrive.
Nice. It almost sounds like these days, if they were gonna till the soil, couldn't they just, as they directly after harvest, basically go back and seed at that time, and then kind of naturally let, as you're talking about, kind of let everything naturally let the leaves fall, hold the moisture in long enough in the spring to kind of reboot things. Reboot agriculture is your Instagram name is there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's exactly what some of these guys are doing. Like Gabe Brown in North Dakota, he doesn't till anything. It's all roller crimpers, harvest a crop, leave stubble in place, seed right on top of that. And once you get those communities established uniformly, there is no weeds because you've tuned the soil and the crop and the biology all together, and they're working together in a community to be super productive. And there's another guy, Grow the Farm Up, Brad Lauber. He's a seed farmer in Nebraska, and same thing. Going through seeding from the high boy, just seeding out into, he harvested a crop. There's a cover crop growing underneath it. He's seeding into that another crop, and it just sprouts up and grows. And you don't have to go cut the soil up. You're not disturbing the biology, and it's like a symbiotic, ever-evolving system. It's really amazing what you can do if you just tune your timing and nutrition and environment a little bit.
Yeah, it really seems like a wasted opportunity not to kind of plant next to what you just harvested, because it's already happening. You know what I mean? That seedling just could cheater right into that network, and everything's set up for it, as you're saying there.
Yeah, it's like a relay. It's like a handoff. Here you go. I got it going for you. You're next. Have fun.
Yeah.
See you next round.
Right on. And I like, do they actually kind of like chip after some products like corn and stuff like that? I mean, do they grind up the stuff and I kind of put it back into the soil? It seems like I know in cannabis, as I wash my hash, it didn't take long. I'm kind of inquisitive at some points, and I started feeding my plants my hash water a long fucking time ago, and I immediately see, wow, these gals love that shit. So why wouldn't you have the same kind of mindset with other crops like that? It's basically what it needs. It just needs to kind of break down, and there it is. It's you know
Yeah.
all the
Yeah,
hormones, everything right there. Does
for
it
sure.
happen, or?
They do that. A lot of times they end up harvesting that biomass and selling it baled, or like in corn, oftentimes it's sold or used as silage. They'll harvest the whole thing, strip the corn out, they take the stalk and the leaf and all that, and they stick it, and they basically make sauerkraut out of corn for the cows, and that's a great nutritional feed for the cows. But you could always take the cow output and put that back on the field. But it is good practice to leave some biomass there from the top, but you also got to remember how much biomass is there under the soil. So you've got a truly healthy plant. As much as 80% of a plant's biomass can be in the ground in the form of roots. And so you have a huge amount of biomass that's hidden there. And remember, when that plant dies, all of a sudden that root system dies. Now there's this huge die-off that feeds the microbe community, the bacteria and fungi and all those integral pieces. So that's part of why that cover cropping and intercropping thing works so well. You got one crop dying off, triggering a microbe explosion as a new crop is getting established. So there's all this like free food energy sort of.
So let's say that field were geared for cannabis. What steps would you be taking to kind of prep it?
I'd love to have it for like 2 years beforehand with some cover crops, at least 3 different species. And I'd probably cover crop again for, say, my latitude here at 42 North. I'd probably cover crop again like early September with like a rye, an Austrian winter pea, and maybe something else. I can't even think off the top of my head, but cover crop it like that, and then maybe flip that over into another 3 or 4 species crop the following season. Something you could support pollinators with, probably do like a honey crop off it as well. And then the following fall, hit it again with a winter cover crop. And then in that spring, grow in it. And I think you'd have a really well-built soil base. It would give you awesome growth and nutrition and health for plants. Basically build the carbon and the microbe community up.
So who have been some of the influences for wisdom in the soil that have got you where you are? Help some people, leave some crumbs of where to start off for some people if they want to head in that direction.
For sure. I'm ever grateful to the people I got to learn from. John Kemp of Advancing Eco Agriculture and Advancing Eco Agriculture as a YouTube channel and a podcast. Those guys are amazing. They're doing amazing soil science work. They're setting new trends in regenerative agriculture. They're amazing, and they do some amazing YouTube talks, webinars. Those are awesome educational tools. Let's see, Dan Kittredge and the Bionutrient Food Organization. in Massachusetts, bionutrient.org, I think they are. They're doing some really cool stuff. Same thing, regenerative ag, a lot more vegetable and meat production on that side of things. Who else? Gabe Brown was good stuff. I don't know. There's so many, but those are really the key ones that I've learned so much from and spend a lot of time studying. And they put out a lot of great material. You know, the Bionutrient Association has like a library archive of all the nutrition conferences that they do. This Northeast Organic Farmers Association puts on a nutrition conference every year. And so, you know, that's where I came across John Kempf and, you know, a whole bunch of other people like that. So those are great resources to learn from, and they're always putting out new content on top of it. So it's hard to even keep up. But yeah, so those, I hope those are good enough crumbs. They're excellent information sources there.
What was your first rabbit hole when you dove into the soil there?
Man, believe it or not, it was Roundup. John Kempf gave a talk at one of the 2013 NOFA conference, and he talked about Roundup and how it chelated trace mineral nutrition and how that locked up soil, and then crops couldn't be healthy and express their genes, and how they couldn't photosynthesize properly. And that opened the whole thing to like, holy shit, what's actually going on in our food supply? You know, what actually is a healthy plant? Because I thought I'd seen healthy plants until I started to learn that I hadn't seen healthy plants really. And that, you know, that once I started down that, it's like, that's like a rabbit hole within a rabbit hole within a rabbit hole within a rabbit hole. So.
So this is where I've probably gotten myself in probably a little bit of trouble a few times with some people I respect, but you know, soil science is amazing, and it's very essential to some good quality cannabis. Don't get me wrong here, but I think that some of this stuff, when newer growers look into growing cannabis and they think about growing in soil, they see these discussions, and they're amazing discussions. Once you've opened that door, I mean, they're fascinating. But as a newer grower and they start thinking, well, I'm going to grow into soil, I can honestly see as they flip from channel to channel, they go, holy shit, I'm not ready for soil. These big terms, you know what I mean? What the fuck are they talking about? I'm just going to the bottle. I'm just going to the bottle. So, what would your advice be to somebody that's, you know, kind of looking to get into the soil, and how when to start taking it a little bit more seriously?
Well, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, if you're just trying to grow some weed for yourself, you know, certainly do something that works so you end up with a yield, right? You want something to smoke at the end of the day, or you need your medicine, right? But I would say it's probably best to really like start off by like just get some organic compost and just try growing a couple plants in that and see how it does, and learn what you can from that. And then kind of, you know, over time, start studying how to amend that soil and make it better. You know, a lot of the stuff that happens in chemistry in the, you know, the NPK like standard system, you know, also translates to the soil. It just works differently, and there's different inputs and they have a little bit different effect, but you can kind of like learn to like translate that sort of stuff that way, because it's easy to start in that 3-part system, right? And that's like a simple way to approach it and start to get the understanding of the basics. And then you can kind of advance your knowledge that way slowly, and not, you know, not risk your entire, say you can only grow 6 plants, not risk your entire 6 plants on something that you don't have enough experience in to necessarily know you're going to have a success. It all comes down to like, what are you willing to risk, right? At the end of the day, I guarantee once you hit a soil grow right and you smoke from the soil grow, something that you grew in a hydro grow or another medium grow, you compare the flavor of those two, I guarantee the soil is going to put it away if you did a soil grow right. It's going to have more terpenoids. It's going to taste better. It's going to get you a little bit nicer buzz. I just really strongly feel that way.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. And
but
go ahead. I'm sorry. You're the guest. I didn't mean
I'm sorry. I just was going to say, but I also agree that it is complex for somebody learning to grow. And, whatever you got to do to learn how to grow, to get the basics down, do that. Once you get success, learn to build on that success. I think it's like learning anything else. Don't bite off more than you can chew. And definitely soil science, even at a low level, can get really complicated really quick. And then, you see some of these conversations that are going on that are high level. It's like, they're talking about one little piece of one little part of one little piece of the system, and then relating that to the whole system. You got to have a pretty good mental picture of what's going on there to really grasp all that. So.
Yeah, I believe that soil's the better way to go and more sustaining in the long run. But I think some of this stuff, as they tune into some of these cannabis shows and they're laying it down, all the good information, I think it scares a few people when they're thinking about going into soil. That's for sure.
Right. Rightfully so.
What do you think about the so-called bottled organics? And especially there can be some high tickets on that. Is it is that a fool just chasing the organic dream, or should they just be focusing on the soil and feeding it?
I mean, ideally, yeah, you'd be focusing on the soil for sure. How do you get started with that? Well, you got to put all those nutrients in there, right? And some soils don't come with everything you need. So it doesn't hurt to do some supplementation. At the end of the day, the more tuned you get it growing, the more you can rely on amending soil and kind of knowing where the plant cycle is going to go for its nutritional needs and being ahead of that, the better tuned you get at that. One thing I will say is, if you're going to go with liquid nutrients, go with something that you know is effective and it's been proven to be effective. And, I guess I don't know how else to say this, but like the only company that I can get nutrients from that I trust 100% is Advanced Eco Agriculture. And I use their foliar feeds religiously to help me build soils and build plant health. And they work really great. And that's helped me build soils faster, right? And it's not about the company and the company's product, except that their products are targeted for those specific purposes. But it's more about balancing those slight deficiencies you have, or more importantly, even correcting for excesses. I mean, excesses can be even a worse enemy than deficiency. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. I think soil is definitely a fascinating subject. It's multiple. It's twofold. I think, as you go into the soil, you actually tend to learn so much about yourself. it's a double-edged sword, man. It's soil and soul.
Yeah,
I think you're digging into as you get deeper and deeper into the soil.
Yeah, if you're going to look it in the eyes, it's going to look back at you.
Right. Oh, so let's talk a little bit more cannabis there. As much as the topic of soil could go on pretty much days if you wanted to get it rolling. But unfortunately, we have so many hours on this show, and that could go on, like I said, forevers.
Yeah, it could.
So I guess, are you producing strains of your own? And I guess, well, that's a silly question. Are you keeping them for yourself, or are they for market? And I guess, how many do you have under the belt?
I might in the future market them. At the moment, I just have the one strain. I had several others that I've read, but the last place I was in, I had a roof collapse and my feedstock all got on. I'm going to keep messing with this one and refining it. And I feel like if it's something that might be marketable later on, I would consider it for sure. Uh, you know, I like dancing around with the breeding stuff. I just really enjoy that. It's just fun to tune and tweak and to get more in tune with a particular species of the plant or multiple species and kind of like learn to meld those pieces together. So it's more of a hobby kind of thing. But I don't know. It depends if there was a market for it and New York went more toward the legal side of things. Yeah, it probably would be fun to do. Also to do something like that, you need a pretty good controlled room space to really do a good, stabilized stock. So I don't know, but it definitely wouldn't be off the table. I guess I put it that way.
What do you consider a stabilized stock? At what point, and I think this is a good question. At what point do you put out something that, this is what I'm proud of? Do you leave it at the door where a lot of people, where they're like, okay, this is what I've put out and there will be some variation there? Or do you have a vision and you want to breed it to, you know, this is what you're getting every time, damn near clone kind of stock. And then that's the vision. That's what you get. Do you see yourself waiting for that, or kind of helping everybody breed along with you basically, and help you find what's there?
I wouldn't be opposed to sharing the stock with other people and running some tests and that kind of stuff. That would be fun. Ultimately, like, I'm happy if it meets the criteria of growth, narrowness of harvest time across between seed, right? Like within a 1 or 2 week window. Buzz and terpenoids, I would want to be pretty even across. But I think with anything, you have the opportunity for variation unless you do a lot of work stabilizing. So I don't know. But then again, if I was going to put my name on something, I'd probably get real anal about it and really, dial it in and get it super smooth. So.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And that's I think that's why I don't fuck around with that shit, because that would be me. You know what I mean? I would want it repeatable every time. This is the vision. You couldn't get a clone, but you're gonna get it in seed form every time.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, at that point, I would be, and when I'm actually hoping that more and more breeders at least consider this, is fucking at that point, it would all be I hit the mute button as I was talking. It would all be proprietary. Well, you know what I mean? Because it is my vision. It'd be like, this is, it's beautiful. And you know what I mean? You could have it tested, you can fucking see how it is, how it hits you, how you know what I mean, get all the numbers and stuff like that. But the ingredients, I'd have that on lock. You'd be chasing that forever.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, to stabilize a strain like that, to really do it right, so you can put your name on it and stand, it's a lot of cost and expense and equipment. It's no joke to do that and produce it on a huge stock level besides to make, if you're going to do it, you got to make a shit ton, right? And if you're going to make a shit ton of copies, let's make sure the fucking master copy is solid before we make any copies. So, it's a lot of energy, time, expense, and process and thought and selection, and and then you still got to get lucky.
I just kind of really think that hype dictates, unfortunately, both breeding and consumer purchase. You know what I mean? They don't necessarily even want to hit it, smoke it, or whatever. They want to know what's in it before they even, oh, it's got that in it. It's got to be good, man. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think the strain should have its own reputation, not necessarily the ingredients in it. I mean, it's not too often that you pick up something off the shelf and you instantly roll it around to the ingredients and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
It's more
Yeah.
you're looking to see if it has the things you don't want in it, not necessarily,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Am I
For
crazy
sure.
in thinking that, or is you think there's some logic there?
No, I think you're right there. I don't even need to add to that.
Right on. So I heard you kind of touch on something that I don't necessarily utilize a whole lot myself, but I'm never said that my ways, I'm always open minded to learning and whatnot. But how important are the foliars, and do you suggest them? I mean, my pullback was just I was worried about moisture in the air and just it promoting more problems than benefits. So, what are your thoughts, and how would you go about using foliars in your garden?
Man, anytime you're going to do any amendment, you want to target that for a specific reason, to target a specific problem and address it correctly, right? So foliar feed, same thing. If you're doing it because it's at a particular time in the plant's life and you want to support nutritional for that plant, right? Like corn's a nice, easy one to give examples of, right? Corn has a 9, a 12, and an 18-day critical point of influence. So, we'll look at 4 critical points. At seed, at germination, if that plant has all it needs nutritionally and biologically, you have now not limited that crop. Okay. So next phase is 9 days from germination. And at that point, if it has everything it needs nutritionally, environmentally, and can continue to express its full genetics, it has the potential to produce 8 ears. At the 12-day phase, you can affect how many rows will be on each ear. And then at the 18-day mark, you can affect how many kernels are on each row, right? Depending on how that plant does. So if it does really well during those periods, you haven't limited its genetics. If it does horrible, you've limited it. So same kind of concept applies with anything you're doing amendment-wise, and especially foliar feeds. You're always trying to target what does that plant need nutritionally and supply that in an available form that it can absorb very quickly. And when it does that, and you basically, what you're targeting is increasing photosynthesis. You're trying to get the plant nutrition tuned to the best level so that it can photosynthesize at its maximum rate. And in doing that, it produces more energy, more sugars, and those sugars become complex carbohydrates and exudates. Those go down into the soil. They feed the microbial community. The microbial community thrives and feeds back to those roots again. And that accelerates photosynthesis more, and that cycle pumps and accelerates faster and harder as you go. And foliar feeds are a great way to have a fast effect on that for very minimal amount of material. It's like a quart per acre can make a huge, huge difference in photosynthetic capacity.
Pretty awesome. Awesome.
So I guess the simple answer for that is yes, I'd recommend using foliar feeds, but start small, start simple. Again, just like with anything, and learn a little bit as you go, experiment, and as you get better at it, you'll kind of learn to understand, what else you need to tune to make it better.
What is your preferred plant training method?
Yeah, my preferred plant training method and soil building method in combination with cover cropping and lots of species. The more species you get, the more microbial community diversity you have, and the more of that you have, the more adaptable soil you have for whatever crop you're growing, and more resilient to droughts, floods, etc.
I'm kind of more asking, for geared more toward cannabis in general. Do you prefer to like super crop? Are you, a
Oh
scrog,
yeah.
or do you just prefer a nice bush? Do you think it's better off? Everybody's foolish and you should let it come up au natural. It's the best way for terps, weight, and whatever. Let us in on your training methods or what you think's the best way anyway.
I think that goes down to strain dependent for sure. But I definitely like super cropping a lot. I've had good results with that. I definitely like to pinch a top early and get it to split, sometimes a couple of times, and get it to kind of turn into a bush. I find that gives some nice colas and pretty good yields. And it does that thing where you're tipping that balance between cytokines and auxins. Every time you top it, you're reducing the amount of above soil mass. So now there's more root, right? And it's going to trigger cytokines and make the roots grow out more, and that'll support nutrition better. So when it comes back, it bounces back stronger and faster. Definitely like that. I've seen lots of people do screen to green. It's something I never did. I just, the grow spaces I was in weren't really conducive to that. So I just never played with it. I definitely have done a lot of like training them, like sort of low stress training them over for outdoor stuff to kind of matching with terrain and, give them a little camo. Yeah.
Right on. Right on. I appreciate your advice there. What about defoliating in both in veg and flower?
I've messed around with that a bit, especially on indoor, just because to get that light penetration, the intensity. I had a lot of trouble with, especially with purple couche. It was just such a dense canopy. You couldn't get light, but beneath that like 1.5 or 2 inch layer of leaves on top. But I tried defoliating and I didn't find that really increased performance much. So I kind of laid off playing with it. And I haven't really been back to play with it too much. I do some pruning sometimes along the lines of that, nipping back, but later in veg, I'll take a branch and clip the end of each of the couple branches to make them split out a bit. Other than that, not so much.
If you're going to put your money out there and buy some seed, how do you make your choice? Is it necessarily by hype of the strain? Is it choice of breeder? Do you have a favorite breeder?
Boy, can't say I really have a favorite breeder. It's really about that sativa buzz, that up creative working buzz. I love the Brothers Grimm Cinderella 99. That's a banging strain. Very early flowering as far as the sativa goes, so that's nice. And I love that like pineapple-y flavor to it. Super Silver Haze is an awesome one, but man, that 12 weeks to flower is just so long. I did have an auto flower version of that years back. A guy in one of the Nordic countries, forget the name of the country at the moment, but sent me was Peiku Rooter crossed with Super Silver Haze, and that was like basically like Super Silver Haze, but maybe 4 or 5 feet tall and ready by mid-September. And that was an awesome one. I lost that strain too in that fucking mold loss shit. So I'd love to get a hold of some Peiku Rooter and some Silver Haze and recross that again. That would be a really cool one to go back to. And then I had crossed that with some Main Zone Blueberry. If you've never had Main Zone Blueberry, that's an awesome one. Super strong odor, super blueberry. That one, as far as I know, is only clone though. I had gotten a clone of that years back, and I crossed it with a bunch of different stuff. That was a cool one to play with, especially crossed with like a strong sativa, because that was more like an indica strain. And man, it was great buzz, but you're sleepy in an hour or so.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess no favorite breeder, huh? Is there a favorite chirp profile? I know you say sativa, but
I really like the lemony stuff, the citrusy stuff, very much. And as much as I like the buzz of the Silver Haze, I don't like the spicy of that as much as I do like the more lemony kind of stuff. Trying to think, there was one like lemon sativa that I tried a while back. Somebody gave me, I forget what it was called, but it was really lemony and it was super like up and super like eye buzz, like behind the eyes. And that was a really nice one. But yeah, more on the fruity, citrusy side of things typically. I have had a few good ones with some skunk in them that were nice too, like Island Sweet skunk in them.
I guess let's talk harvest a little bit. How do you prefer to take that cannabis? And do you prefer to just kind of whole plant hang? Do you wet trim? Let's hear your process on that.
I like the whole plant hang for sure. Years back when I had more plant matter, I did a lot of wet trim just because it was quicker and easier. I found the dry trimming was tricky, just stickier, so it was hanging up on the scissors and that kind of stuff. This year, I only had a few plants, so I did the whole plant hang, let them dry. They're like 5 to 7 days, depending on how temperature and how humid it was, and then take them and trim them down and go into jars with a humidor and slow cure from like say 70% with the jar lid half on, and work your way down to like 60 or so, where you work the lid on and off more and more over time. That curing is critical for nice flavor, and I find it changes the buzz and the whole profile quite a bit over time.
So I guess I guess may have just answered it, but where do you like your cannabis there? Are you more fresh and like it a little bit on the more sticky side, or do you prefer the cure side of things?
I like fresh a little bit, but I think I really like the cured better because it seems like the buzz lasts longer, and it seems like it's a little, I don't know, there's something I like about it that I don't even think I can put words to, but I really do like a good cured buzz. But on the flip side, I've had them where they're too dry, and I don't like that at all. I'd rather a little bit green than too dry, and it kind of just like, poof to ash on you before you know it hits you.
I almost have to think that, and I'm not necessarily pointing my finger at you in any kind of way. It's just a something I thought as we're talking there. Is I can't help but wonder if the folks that actually like the more cured weed just don't like THC. You know what
Well,
I
I don't
mean?
know.
They like
I
it a
don't
little
know.
further down the line. They like the CBD in there. You know what I mean? They like it.
You could be
I'm
right.
wondering.
You could
I'm
be
wondering.
right. I'd like to see what the profile transition is. It's too bad we can't see like a chart of how it's transitioning and sample different points along that line.
And is it a matter of necessarily flavor of the bud, or is it the effect for you on the cure?
It's flavor is definitely a big factor in it for sure. Like smell and flavor, like when you open a jar and it's like it's been cured in that jar for a while and that smells kind of like densely accumulated. And you get a whiff and it's like, man, you feel that just light up your whole like system, but there is a buzz difference I find, or I seem to notice, and I like that too for sure.
I do. I think the
I would
buzz.
love to see a Turk chart of that. That would be cool.
I honestly think that would be an interesting to see right there. But I think as far as buzz goes, I think it's more of the breakdown of the cannabis. You know what I mean? It's more ambered at that point. You know, and why not harvest that more amber? Instead of harvesting earlier, why not harvest at that amber point, closer to where you would be into a more cured cannabis? Or would that, be silly if the long-term cure is your goal? Do you want it to naturally progress to that amber, and that, as we were talking about further down the line? As far as like the taste myself, I think it's tough for me, and I guess kind of goes back to where we talking about when do you release that strain. You have a vision of the goal, and is that it at the beginning when we were talking it's more fresher and it's nice on the scissors and shit, and that's at that point I think you get more dances and it has more of a palate, I guess. You're getting something on the inhale, as it sits there in your mouth. You can sit there, I can taste that a little bit. And then it can be as complex as having something on the back end too. But in a more cured buzz, you have that, different buzz effect to it, which adds some to it. But I think it's more of a gym bag effect. All the above, that we like in the more fresher side of it has more of the gym bag effect. They've all kind of danced in the jar in the bag, and they've kind of blended and soaked back into the fabric of the bud and created, something new. So is that, what I mean? As a breeder, is that what you want your cannabis? You know what I mean? Is that what the damn, this got mouth representation? This coffee is not helping. Or is it in the beginning? Do you want them to see that more of a individual flavor palette?
Well, I mean, if I had it my way, I'd want the person who likes the fresh stuff to get the fresh, and the person who likes the cured stuff to get the cured stuff. But it's an interesting point that you make there about the ambering part and the curing. I tend to harvest early. I like that clear trichome. I like that more uppy buzz. So even when I do that and I cure it, I wonder, am I ambering it more? Maybe I should cure it colder or slower, or good point. And like I said, I like the fresh and the cure. I think I tend to lean more toward the cure. I think it's like more diverse flavor profile, a little bit different buzz. But there's times I like fresh too. And then if I've been smoking dried or cured for a long time, and then like the season ends and I get some fresh in, I'm like always stoked for that. So like it varies for me from week to week of like what I feel like smoking today or what buzz I feel like.
Well, I kind of feel like as far as like when we're talking about when to harvest, and you just answered my question. You like to harvest towards the more clear, cloudy, you know what I mean? That side of things for the headier type buzz. And that's something that, people don't realize you can tweak your strain as well and individualize it for you. Me, myself, I always have tried to encourage a later harvest, not necessarily for the best representation as we're talking about, more towards the cured end of what it would be. But I think more people shoot to the the grow store or try to dive in for something as a natural hardener. And I believe as you let the flower senesce naturally and get more towards that amber end, you get a natural hardening of the bud when most people are adding something to that to be there in the earlier stage. Uh, I, I don't know. That's just, my opinion is I learned to grow. I don't necessarily take it that far because I like the couch lock, but I just think that's, I know I'm getting the max yield at that point, and I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say at the end of the day, it's about like density. How much can you create, right? So I get that too. I just tend to go for the clear because that's the buzz I like, and it's small scale, and I'm like, fuck it, But yeah, there's been times when I've let stuff go longer, and I have to say, they definitely developed another level beyond most of the stuff that I harvest earlier. They definitely like got that density. They got like extra flavors and some extra parts that I almost can't describe in them, and same thing, they cured well. But, with that came that sleepier buzz, and that's kind of what drove me in the direction of, let's put the flavor from now on into quite so much of that, body sleepy end of things. But like you say, it's about tuning to what each person likes, right? I mean, I know people that just smoke straight sativa all day. They can work and run on that. Me, I smoke sativa and I want to go take a nap. But on sativa, I can rock and roll.
I was just wondering this as we were talking about, the soil and cannabis. Is that necessarily, it seems like that would be the best way to honestly test a new strain would be through the soil, because it gives it more or less an even start. You know what I mean? Most growers, you tend to notice the problem when it's more operator error. At some point, some strains just kind of throw you a nanner because, and it's usually indicas because you threw a little bit high nitrogen too long into flower there and she just didn't like it. You should have just backed off, you know what I mean? The newts, and she just let her sip along. And so I think it's operator error sometimes when you see herms and stuff like that. But I feel like if you're a breeder and you're wanting to test your strains out, if you had a good soil, you eliminate, what the, you know what I mean? That up and down, you know what I mean? It's more of an even start, I guess. And then if you shoot a herm through in soil like that, I guess, I think that would be more of a red flag, and you know what I mean? Then
I would totally agree with that. I mean, the soil will give you that like you say, like an even running ground to test against. Because it's so easy when you have that liquid nutrient system to tweak those NPKs out just a little bit. Like Dutch Passion put out a paper probably 10 or 15 years ago on the first 3 weeks of starting a seed, and I think the study was with non-sex seed, and the difference between male and female ratio is just if you could hold 70 degrees and hold the NPK ratio at 3:2:1. And it was like 78% female if you could do that for the first 3 weeks. And so it's like, all you got to do is fuck up that temperature, or have, K really high instead of N at the beginning. And now you got a whole different thing, So, yeah.
I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. Because we've danced around with that question, and if you watch the show, and you obviously have, many a nights in some good wormholes, We Nerd Worlds, rabbit holes, is that question, because I've gotten seeds and have them lean one way or another, great female germ, or rats that wah 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 are fucking bunch of dudes and shit. And I'm like, I refuse to believe that it was a 50-50 option. And that just I happened
Yeah.
as a shaked out, I got that ratio. I'm like, no. There's something else going on here. So, but I've posed that question many times. Does environment and stuff like that actually dictate the final male female ratio? And it's nice to
Yeah.
hear, what you're saying there, that, there is a little bit of science to that.
Yeah. I think they did that study way back, actually. That might have even been done under Neville. I don't know
So
if you remember Neville.
if we can figure that out, then couldn't we just pretty much fucking eliminate the current fucking way? Most people don't like to buy it from seeds because we've intervened, or the breeder has chosen a fucking banana or some type of to work with, or or herb to work with. I misspoke there, to create that fem stock. But if we could figure out that ultimate environment nutrient recipe, to where you were geared fucking a female seed every fucking time, why would you fucking even fuck around with trying to fem a seed? You know what I mean? You would just, wouldn't you would rather have the natural female stock versus a human intervened, human stock?
Yeah, but then when you come into the thing about not wanting someone to rip off your genetics, right? Then when you take and do a feminized, now that they have to know how to do a reversal correctly and do a pollination correctly, right? And so I could see why you would do that to protect a strain. But from a pure perspective, it's like really what you'd want to do is provide the grower both quality seed stock and then the information they need to control the environment and soil correctly to get that ratio of, say, 78%. Say that's the number, right? So they get a high female ratio.
See, now that's,
but even
to
then,
me,
grow room to grow room, that's so hard to, how do you really control that?
Yeah. You're definitely getting it scientific. You're on, at that point, if you're on that high of a scale, why the fuck aren't you just kind of breeding out your own shit? You know what I mean?
You have to sell them a grow room and the soil and the seed to get it right, and then control the grow room remotely.
Well, there's multiple things I see in there, and again, when I talk breeding, I'm kind of fucking real kind of picky on what I think And everybody has their own criteria, and then you're entitled to yours. I'm entitled to mine, and unfortunately, I kind of hold mine a little high. But what in the instance that you're talking of, I'm kind of hearing it's the same thing as like dubbing a tape or a CD. Yeah, you might be able to replicate it, but you don't necessarily know how the band created the tune, or you know what I mean? You're just kind of selling a copy of a copy of a copy. You've learned how to just kind of redub it. You know what I mean? And if we're
Yeah.
talking like we're earlier, your shit's a little proprietary. I wouldn't feel as threatened as if you could mock that exact environment like that. But and here's another thing too
That's
that
true.
I add to the breeding end of it. So the proprietary thing kind of helps keep your, because again, we're not allowed to patent the plant. So why not, hide behind the proprietary, clout for one, because that buys you a shitload of time in people figuring out your genetics. And then there's the other factor that I really hold, unless you're trying to, breed land race stock, excuse me, trying to work that angle of it. And then at that point, you're not necessarily at the point where we're talking about where this is the one. This is, you know
Right.
what I
That
mean?
window. Yeah.
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 And at that point, I believe that you have to keep that male. You know what I mean? You're keeping that dude and you're keeping that mom, either
Yeah.
keeping them alive for replication point purposes, or you've tissue cultured them,
Yep.
and you banked it that way and be able.
Yep.
And so if you've taken those two steps, you know what I mean, the proprietary, and then you hold, a obvious mom and dad to make that
Yep.
strain, because I think that's key in replication.
Yep.
You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah. Yeah. No, if you want to make an exact copy, that's exactly what you have to do. That's the only way to do exactly what you have to do.
So if you're holding those two cards, proprietary and then mom and the proper mom and dad, all they can do is fucking dub that tape.
Yep. Yep. That's
They can
true.
try to
Well,
dub that tape.
and at the end of the day, anybody who's like really after a particular strain from a particular breeder is going to go to the breeder for that strain, not somebody who reproduced what the breeder produced, right? And we find those sort of things out pretty quickly through all sorts of different pathways. So it's like you can only fake that market for so long before everybody knows anyway, right?
And I think that's what people, the consumers, will kind of know that. You know what I mean? You can't necessarily. I mean, you can't buy a Fago Cola and think it's Coca Cola. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's you could
It's not even
no.
the same ballpark.
No, a wise consumer would be like, yeah, you don't know what Coke, you know what I mean? The secret recipe of
Just
Coke. I'm
tastes
gonna go
wrong.
buy a Coke. Yeah, I'm going over here. Get away with me. Get away from me with that imitation shit.
RC, get out of here with that RC shit.
Yeah, there you go. Hell yeah. And I think that'll slow things down. I really do. I think, at that point, you know, we can get back to some great strains and bring the dollar back on some cannabis, because it won't be, so watered down, and you'll be able to hold true to, something that's really a great representation, and people will want that, Budweiser, whatever it is. These are shitty
Yeah, yeah,
representations, I guess, but I think that will help bring the dollar back to the market, instead of, because everybody's mass
yeah,
producing and trying to
yeah,
predict the market right now, instead of, standing by their guns. And this is, you know
yeah,
this is my product versus I'm just trying to throw what you want
yeah. Swing it
in
for
as much.
dollars, basically. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is
Well, I mean,
cannabis?
I think,
Go ahead. I'm
oh,
sorry.
go ahead. I
No,
was
no,
going to
no.
say, I hope at the end of the day that, the communities form around, growers and breeders, and that sort of thing gets promoted. I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to like, it's being corporatized, right? So the big companies are coming in and they're scooping up and they're going after profits. At the end of the day, they're going to exhaust that, I'm hoping. And, the kind of the base communities that were there to establish it, that held us through all the prohibition, can kind of come back and thrive again, I hope.
I was going to ask, has cannabis ever, you've kind of mentioned, of course, the girlfriend factor there, but has cannabis really brought you some trouble in your life?
Oh yeah, yeah. Uh, same kind of thing. Argument with the girlfriend, and then they get you in trouble for the cannabis, and then you got to wriggle your way out of that legally. But not too bad, a few skirts with police and courts, but managed to avoid any time or major consequences. But yeah, definitely kept me on my toes about not getting too big or too egotistical.
I tell you what, man, I'm very much on the record of um, of being legal cannabis kind of taking the fun out of the outlaw part of my life in cannabis. There was definitely some fun and or the thrill of the chase, I guess, and in that. But as you've kind of talked about the girlfriend, the wife factor there, legality has definitely been a plus in that factor. It's taken that axe out of their bag. Because now it's
Uh-huh.
like, yeah, uh-huh. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So totally legal.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
What
So
else?
now
What
what are you
else you
gonna
got? Yeah.
now what are you gonna make now what are you gonna make up? Because there's nothing to actually talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can definitely think the legal side of things on that for sure.
Yeah. That's nice just to have that off the table, kind of levels the playing field a little.
It does. It does. So, do you make any hash or edibles? Yeah, you did mention an edible earlier. Did you make that yourself, or did you something that you snagged
Yeah.
up at your local dispo?
Yeah, no, that's my strain from that I grew this year, and I took like maybe an ounce and a half or so of that, and some ghee that I made, ghee butter, and made decarbed in the oven, and then went into the ghee, mixed up with the ghee, and then I made some kind of like a granola bar kind of things, like pumpkin, blueberry, crabapple, granola, pumpkin seed mix. Um, and man, they're fucking awesome edibles.
I guess I'm full of counterpoints tonight. um, so, do you really believe that when you're making or prepping something for edibles, like you said, is decarbing necessarily a must, or is it kind of just geared towards what you're using it for?
I definitely would say I gear it towards what I'm using it for. Uh, like this recent batch, for example, I decarbed at 220 on the first half of that. I split that into two pieces. So the first pass, I decarbed at 220 for 20 minutes. They didn't want to go past that curve. I don't know if you've ever seen that decarb chart where 220 is kind of the sweet spot for 20 minutes. Anyway, this is a great decarb chart on the internet. And then that kind of didn't have the same hitting power I was hoping it would when it did like the test with the ghee. So then the next one I decarbed at 250 for 4 minutes, and I added that to the batch. And now it's got a nice like bang, a little more buzz to it, but the body stone is still there, which I like. And there's definitely a medicinal factor there. Like I'm a cigarette smoker, obviously you see me smoking, and like I started doing the edibles. First time I've done any edibles I've made in a couple of years. And I've been coughing up a lot of the like phlegm and crap in my lungs. And I had a spider bite on my leg that I've been struggling with. My foot was like swollen and bruised and all screwed up, and that's clearing. So there's definitely medicinal value to it there as well. And I kind of like to balance the two. Like I like the buzz of it, but definitely if you're trying to do medicinal, you're probably better with less decarb. If you're just trying to get those raw cannabinoids in. So yeah, I would say you tune it to what you're trying to accomplish. Just like the rest of it, right? Like the soil, the growing, the plant, the curing, all of those are like factors that you can stack for or against whatever your final goal is.
Oh, I definitely agree with that for sure. Because as we were talking about, I have never really considered the fact that we can aim it a little bit. I would think myself, a decarb would be more for something that I wasn't gonna cook. You know what I mean? Something for like a tincture,
Yeah,
or something like that, where I
that's
want
another point.
available. But I think again, when you talk about like decarbing it and then re-cooking and rebanging it, you said you noticed that heavier hit. I'm back to like, do you like THC? Because you've worked it, you know what I mean? You've worked it down the line, and then you worked it down the line, and you're like, no, 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 no. Take me towards the end, man. I want to be couch locked, man. Fucking hit me twice, man.
Well, shit. I wish I could share some of this with you because I'd love to see how you tune to it. But yeah, I mean, maybe I don't like THC. Maybe I like some decomposed version of cannabinoids.
Oh no,
That's
man.
okay, right? No prejudice.
No, no, no. It's all good. It's all the same. It's all the same. It's just different points of joy. That's the beauty of this plant,
that's
is
a
it
good
can be
point
so
too.
individualized. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was just going to say that's a good point too. Whether you're just going to use it like to make chocolates where you're not going to be baking it again, or whether you're going to bake it into brownies or something like that. That's a whole different thing too. I definitely don't feel like I need to decarb if I'm going to bake it in the oven for an hour at 350. Whereas, if I'm making like a chocolate or something that's more like speak as far as if I want that buzz to hit me more, I'm going to definitely decarb more to get to that tweak. As far as hash, I've made hash a little bit, but I just found that I didn't have the plant mass to make hash, and I found I could stretch the flower longer. And as a general rule, like the flower buzz better than I do the hash buzz. Although I have had some really nice hashes that were pretty fucking awesome.
Oh man, I think they dance together very well. A nice for me. For some
The
reason,
gather is nice, yeah.
the extracts necessarily, when you get further down the line to like a rosin and stuff like that, it's a different buzz for one, and it gets the way you smoke it kind of is different. I prefer a nice worm with some bubble hash dropped right in the middle of a joint. I think that's for me the perfect combo right there, as far as hash and cannabis.
That's nice. Or I like the keef out of the bottom of the grinder sprinkled into a joint. That's nice too.
Yeah. Oh man, I remember when the the grinders first kind of came out, and that was more readable available, or the kind of the rage there for a minute. I mean, first kind of grinder I got, man, I got serious about that. And nowadays, I actually think when I think about the grinder and what we're talking about, I'm like, kind of like, do you like your weed? Same kind of shit. Why you dumbing it down? Why are you dumbing your weed down? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And
yeah.
back then I did, man. I'm telling you right now, man. I would grind that shit, tap it on the table, whop, 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 whop. Trying to get that keef and shit, you know what I mean? I've even had like kept a coin in there and fucking when I'd grind my shit up and I'd sit there and shake it, kind of even beat it up one more time, tap tap tap, fucking yeah. But I used to
You're
love that.
smoking chlorophyll when you're done.
Yeah. Everybody else is going, man, this weed you one's good and shit, man. What'd you do to this shit? Yeah.
Yeah, then later you're scooping that keef on the bowl. You're like, wow.
Yeah, that honestly, in hindsight, I started to realize what I was doing, and I was like, I'm still to this day, I prefer to, either bust it up with my fingers the best I can, or chunky it up with some scissors. The grinders that I do have a few, but they honestly look like I took a 22 and just went. Because I took a drill to them and it drilled out all the holes to where they're like quarter inch or 5/16. So it's just falling through. But
yeah.
I like to keep as much of that shit together as I can, man.
I have a tendency, I have to say, usually I'll smoke a bowl, just a little hit and carry on with something. And I tend to grab just a little nug off a bud and pack the bowl and smoke it. But the grinder is nice when you want to roll a joint or something. You want that nice even, to get an even roll and an even burn. It's nice for that. But I'll dump the keef back onto it too, so at least I'm not just racking it out.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I like the whole bud.
I don't, as you can see here, honestly, to each their own. I don't filter my joint either, good to the last drop. And then or at least I try to make it good to the last drop. On the bigger joints, if I need a filter, my cheap hack for that is I just throw a bud in the end of it, or like a couple rocky. Here you go.
Ready to get the pliers out next,
That is funny. There for a while, every toolbox had like the needle nose with some rubber bands on the end of it.
Yeah. Hey man, you gotta have all the tools.
I've even seen a few really cool socket pipes.
Oh yeah, I have two. A friend of mine had a pretty cool spark plug pipe too. That was pretty cool.
Definitely some creative stoners out there for sure. So what is your favorite ingestion method? Are you just prefer your joints? Do you prefer bong? Do you like your dabs?
I go back and forth. I really, bowl and bong are my two favorites. I haven't had a bong for a year and a half or so now, just since I moved and all. I haven't gotten another one since I got back. So mostly I've been smoking a bowl and joints, and then I made the edibles this week. So I've been really enjoying that, and I find that I haven't even been smoking that much because I just keep eating edibles. And I really like that, but over time you got to eat more and more, and you start going through a lot of weed. So I tend to stick with bowl. for the most part because it's super efficient. You know, I can get a good buzz on a good bowl and not go through a ton of weed. So lean on the economic side, I guess.
Bulls definitely can stretch it out for you. That's for sure.
Yeah. Recently, I've smoked quite a few joints, though. Just, you know, fresh stock, and you know, it's just a nice way to enjoy October.
Right on. This coffee is not helping my cotton mouth at all. Have you tried any good cannabis beverages as far as like edibles go, man?
I haven't tried any actual cannabis beverages. We have some like CBD stuff here in New York, and I've used those. Those are pretty nice as far as the CBD product goes. I'd love to try it, like a really good cannabis beverage. I looked at them at the dispensary, but they were crazy expensive, and I was just, you know, I'm already spending a bunch of money. So I have done some edibles. Friends have shared edibles from dispensaries with me and stuff before. And some of those are pretty fucking sweet.
One of my favorite as far as like a beverage goes is fucking a kombucha that I had, and it both hit good and it was good for me. That was the best part. It was good for me and too full.
That sounds awesome. A kombucha. I'd love to try one of those.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't like New York. There's no over-the-counter THC higher than like 0.3% right now. They're holding it to like Delta 8, Delta 10 synthetics. It's kind of weird. You can have flour, hash, whatever, but there's nowhere to get it.
That's crazy. You know,
you got to go to Massachusetts.
I still am caught up on the fact that the plant is so dangerous that we single it out. And then not only that, components or molecules of the plant are like, no. We got to break it down like that. It's so dangerous. So dangerous.
Dude, by that logic, poison ivy should be outlawed.
Yeah. Powers that be do not have it right in any way, shape.
Nah, but you know that's by design.
Mr. Tao wants to know, are you north of New York there?
I am about 90 miles north of New York City. And hey, Tao, what's up?
Everybody knows Tao. Everybody's got love. He's a funny dude. Good dude.
He's a funny dude. Smart dude. He's always got some good insights.
Damn white papers. I don't know how he comes up with them white papers. He's got to have a hell of an archive.
Hey, man, I got to hit the bathroom quick. I'll be right back.
Yes, no problem. Cheers, everybody in chat. The American one. We was talking about you, Chiba Man, Candyman Dan, Mr. Smiley's Gardens. Much love to you, my friend. Voodoo Ultras, Ganja Ghost, Modern Genetics, DK, Smoking Grove Frazier. I was talking about you the other day with a friend about the pups, the bloodline of the pups, and who we know may have had or does have, who does have some of those puppies that were given out throughout the years. But I was talking about you. I appreciate the pictures and the updates of those pups, man. I do believe there's something special with them dogs, man. They all do definitely have their own personality. 100%. Cheers, Blind Cat 420. Sent me some fucking DM'd me like a bro. and fucking sent me some fucking pictures of his garden, what he is working on. On point, my friend, on point. Dank 311, cheers to you. How you doing this evening? What dankness are you smoking on this evening? I seen you. Cheers to you. Hopefully you are well. What is everybody smoking on? Go ahead and throw that in chat. Nice. Nice. I should have, for comedy's sake, asked you one or two. Well, how long am I holding it down for? Oh, shit. So how are we doing on time, my friend? Earlier on, you were saying you could probably go an hour, maybe hour and a half. You weren't sure, but we're pushing the two good 2 hour mark now. We're still good.
Are we?
Keep rolling.
Are we? I could go for a little bit longer. Yeah. I do got to get up tomorrow, but I'm enjoying the conversation. So what the hell? Let's go a little bit longer if you got more you want to talk about or whatever.
Right on, right on. So how do you what are your IPM methods? I mean, what's your best approach there? Is it, in sex? Is it necessarily, biological sprays? Oh, let's talk. What's your advice? What do you do?
The big thing is getting that environment tuned right. And if you do that, you do pretty well. Occasionally I get like fungus gnats will come in on soil or something. And I find like hydrogen peroxide tends to knock them out pretty well. Other than that, I don't really have much pest issues. I just rarely have a pest get on them. The thing that I have had trouble with in the past in early spring was like deer, because it's like that early tender growth before everything pops green. So I find if you wait until that flush in late May when everything goes green and the grass pops up, once that happens, then the deer pressure is basically off at that point too. And beyond that, I don't really have pest issues, but that goes back to, making sure those trace mineral nutritions are there, making sure that plant has good biology. And if that's there, the other stuff doesn't have a chance to get established and cause a problem. And that goes for good fungal communities too, I remember some years between bad weather and bad nutrition, having like mold and powdery mildew issues. Man, that is so frustrating. You get something to a bud and like here, like overnight because of the dew or whatever, you come back and the whole thing's turned brown on you. It's like, fuck. And, again, that's about building that healthy soil. Good fats in your soil, good biology present, good trace mineral nutrition that's available. And if you have that, then you don't have those other issues. I haven't had to worry about any of that stuff in years at all. So
That's a good answer right there too. Yeah, I believe that you're 100% right on that. So you have people like Harley Race that kind of would argue that it's kind of more the like the bricks of the plant. You can measure it like that, but I think it is in the soil and everything else. It's not necessarily what's in the plant itself. It is more environment, what's going on in the soil, that is the complete defense of the plant.
Yeah, for sure. And that biology plays a big role in it. And that's not to say that like a bricks meter can't tell you a lot about, the general health of that plant. And furthermore, there's a whole chart online. I think it was put out by AEA actually, talking about plant sap pH and how if it's at 6.4, you don't have disease or pest pressure. And if it's above or below, you get more of fungal attacks or more disease or more, pest attacks. and that kind of thing. So that's a good way to look at it. But at the end of the day, the Brix meter is a very blunt tool for that. And if you're going to use that as a tool, you should be looking at that. You should be checking the same time of day, every day with a Brix meter, taking another sample every day and comparing those readings to look at, am I building the plant sap up? Is the Brix going up? Is it going down? Is it just fluctuating over time? And that gives you a better profile. But it's still a blunt tool. Like advanced agriculture is using plant sap analysis. And that really is the way. What they're doing is taking a live plant sap sample and doing a full spectrum analysis on that plant sap sample and seeing exactly what's in the plant sap. And they can actually determine disease that's going to happen in the plant as much as a month in advance by doing that. And because of that, with foliar feeds, you can counteract that deficiency before the disease develops and not have that happen and not have that yield loss and that genetic potential loss of the plant on its way to harvest. So there's a lot of tools there. That plant sap analysis is expensive. I did that with a tomato crop a few years back, just to kind of get a gauge better on of where I was at with my soil, with my plant health. The test cost $140 between the shipping and the actual cost of the test. That's one test. Ideally, I'd do that every 2 weeks throughout the cycle of the plant. And then you'd have a really good profile on what you've adjusted, where it's at, where it's developing. As fruit and flower filling comes on, there's a huge nutritional increase, right? Like there's a steep curve. Can you meet that? If you're not meeting it, you could adjust for it with foliar feeds, but it's expensive to do. So, any crop less than $5,000 basically isn't worth doing that for the yield gain you get out of it. So ups and downs, but any of those tools are valuable to learn about where you're at and as a reference for past and future grows.
Right on. I appreciate you saying that it is kind of a blunt way of testing it, because it's kind of just a measure of plant health, more or less. It's not a measure of the plant's immune system. And that reaches, as can I say, all the way to the roots. Not necessarily what's in the plant at the time.
Yeah. I mean, let's not forget, just like us humans, 8% of our immune system is supposed to be in our gut. Plants, same thing. And the soil is basically the digestive tract of the plant. That is the plant's colon, basically, right? It's external and in the soil.
Oh, I guarantee. Yeah, I agree. Once I started diving into the soil like that, man, it's what I say. It's a twofold thing, man. That's why I asked where your rabbit hole was, because mine was with microbes there. And once I got into that, I'm still fucking. It's my favorite. When I dive in, that's the door I want to open right away, and venture.
Fascinating, isn't it?
It is, man. And when you see the relationship between you, the soil, and the plant, the similarities of what's going on there, boy, that's a fucking ego eraser right there, man. It's like, really?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Now who's really in control? And it's that whole fucking gut feeling and shit. It makes me wonder if it isn't reaching a little bit even further, than is it not just tapping into it, the brain or what's going on here, but is it actually tapping into the greater network that it has, capable of relying on? Because we're not sure, we think that it's communicating through the mycelia there, the finest little roots putting out little pulses or whatever, but we don't know. We don't know. You know what
No,
I
no.
mean? It could be a whole different communication network. You know, it could be telepathic, or it may not even be able to have, as I'm saying it, maybe not telepathic, but it may be, you know, a vibration that it's communicating and can communicate over distances, as some books like
Yeah,
what was
yeah.
that?
Like,
Fucking A Plant's Life is how they talk about
yep,
how the plant's
yep.
being able to sense you and
Well,
your thoughts from a distance.
yeah, it's like what, like it's like universal consciousness, and then there's like the whole quantum entanglement thing that they're starting to study and recognize, right? But like, how much of that is like way beyond that? And I don't know if you're familiar with Rupert Sheldrake. You know who he is?
Mm-mm.
No? Oh,
No.
interesting scientist. He's doing studies. He's got a theory on something called the Morphic Field, and it's basically like that our consciousness, like we think of it coming from the brain, right? But that it may actually be projected from an outside source. And he's got a theory on how that would work and all. And he's done some really interesting experiments, like with people's pets, cats, and dogs, blind experiments where the animal didn't know they were coming home at a random time that they wouldn't normally come home at. And they had cameras on the animals. And as soon as the person was like called and told to head home anonymously, independent of the animal knew and like went to the door and was waiting for them. Really interesting studies on consciousness and that kind of thing. And also, he even talks about a rat study they did, I think, where they were doing some certain test in a lab with rats, and the rats had to learn how to get through a certain maze, and they found that rats, independent on other labs on the other side of the planet, like learned it faster because rats on the other side of the planet were learning it. All kinds of interesting studies along that like consciousness concept. Sorry, I didn't mean to blabber there, but got me excited.
Oh no, I love it, man. I love it. 100%, man. It's fascinating. It is. It's super fascinating how we give. I honestly think our communications is we're still not done. I think as we go on, we're gonna learn to communicate a little bit more, probably like plants or something like that. I think on a crazy
Yeah,
level, we all know something's changing, and some people will say we're kind of trans. We're moving in towards another dimension, I guess. You know what I mean? We're transitioning into another dimension. I think, and at that point, the way we communicate will be much different. You know,
yeah,
the spoken
yeah,
word will be possibly a thing
yeah,
of the past, or the way we
yeah.
speak in general will be completely different.
Yeah, it's weird to think of that, but yeah, we are kind of hitting this weird like evolution, like light speed curve. it's it's weird. It's weird to watch. Like so many old things are like falling away and new things are happening, and yet at the same time there's all this like uh mismatch of things, like as it kind of tries to like come to the next phase or whatever.
Well, you know, and I do. I really don't think it's any coincidence that we approaching this like weirdness, and I more and more people are digging into the soil for like knowledge, sustainability, and we're realizing, like we're talking about, you know, the greater role of, you know, fungus and shit like that. And they can communicate, as we were just talking about, communicate over miles, you know, magically at some
Yeah.
point. So how come, you know, as we transition to whatever, you know, who's to say we won't be able to do the same thing as we unlock, you know, we're no different. You know what I mean? It's selective breeding
Yeah.
as we
Yeah.
go through, and we're transitioning. Our DNA is constantly changing. We
Well,
Our environment is unlocking things in us as we grow. So who's to say
Yeah,
at
for
some
sure.
point we don't unlock that portion of our brain or our body? Or just let the
For
microbes
sure.
take over for us and do the communicating.
For sure. Well, that Paul Stamets gave a talk years back called "The Future of Fungi." I think it was in Australia, and he talked about how like the fungal webs of the soil are very similar to like the galaxies and the stars in the sky, and how maybe we're part of the big fungal web, on a large scale, and like looking at it from just a different scale perspective kind of thing. It's so cool to like consider all of those things.
Oh yeah. I love cannabis for that. I actually thank cannabis for that. I don't think I would have dove into so many things if it
Yeah.
wasn't for cannabis. To this day, if you've got a documentary with a catchy title, a good narrator, and I've got a joint, I will entertain
Yep.
your theory till at least the end of that joint. And if your theory's still good, I may roll another one and take another look.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great mind expander for sure. And yeah, some of my best ideas and thoughts and realizations have occurred high as a fucking kite. Like, man, that's how I get to the answers. Whether it's about myself or science or life or some obscure shit.
And I think that's another thing too is they're here. What we're talking about, the fungus and stuff like that, are they're hinting to us. You know what I mean? As we ingest them, we I think they most certainly unlock portions of our brain that I think are slowly unlocking what we're talking about. You know what I mean? They're slowly releasing us a little bit of knowledge almost every
Yeah.
time. You know what I mean? Rebuilding our brain in a lot of ways. So I think, I don't think it'll be long before we see some kind of uh, mass awakening, I guess.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And I think we see bits and pieces of evidence of that all over if you look around. And I agree. It's like microdosing an evolution of how we think and interact with each other. It's really cool. Man, I gotta say, I'm getting kind of tired, but it has been great chat with you, Eagle. And
Oh man, I'm grateful for your time, my friend. It has been a great conversation, and you're going to make a great addition to the weed nerd world. And I think you know what the
awesome.
spiel is here, man. This link is yours, man. You're more than welcome to come hang out as much as you like, and I'm sure lots of people would have some very good questions for you. So, or
Awesome.
if you don't, nobody likes to be under fire all the time. So just come
I
hang
never
out
mind a good
too.
question. I never mind a good question. I love thinking about things, and man, when people start asking you questions, that's when you like re-examine things and kind of relearn something for yourself again too. So that's awesome, and I definitely will be back to chat with you guys some more. I'm looking forward to some group conversations and more talk about plants and soils and all that stuff. Thank you so much for hosting your channel, man. I've had so many awesome opportunities to learn just from listening to some awesome high level conversations. So thanks for bringing all these great people together.
No, thank you necessary. This is a blessing for me to be able to be in this position to hear these great stories night after night. And thank you on this side 100%. I owe you guys a huge thank you for coming on and fucking sharing your amazing knowledge and stories night after night. This is 100% a blessing of my head. So thank you, my friend.
Awesome, man.
The other thing I'd like to get from you, I think you know what it is as well. And of course, that is that some people may say dreaded soundbite. I think you know how it goes. And I am ready for yours right now, my friend.
Hey, it's Carlton. I'm on fucking Talking Shit with Eagle.
Episode 731. Can't forget that. They got to know which one it is. They got to go looking for when they hear this sound bite. So, thank you, my friend. 100% grateful for your conversation, your knowledge, and I am 100% looking forward to having more great conversations with you in the future. So, with that
Awesome.
being said, my friend, you want to give anybody a shout outs? Remind them one more last time where they can find you if they want to look you up and hit you up with some DMs on some questions.
Oh yeah. It's Reboot Agriculture on Instagram and the Pharmacy Seeds Network on YouTube. And hit me up either place and glad to entertain any conversation. Shout out to Smiley's Garden, Tao, Justin Goodearth, fucking Canna Queen, Mother Nature. Shit, there's so many people on here. I can't do them all. Oh, and the Major. We got to talk about autoflowers at some point, my friend.
Everybody called him on it too because he was in chat. Even I did. I was like, auto.
Can't wait to go back and forth about that at some point. That'll be fun.
Oh, that's awesome, my friend. One last thank you. Time is the most valuable thing we have, and you give me a nice chunk of yours, and I'm grateful, very grateful for it. And with that being said, guys, hopefully you guys know the routine. If you guys want Weed Nerd World, let me know. If not, if this is the end of your day, then thank you guys for tuning in, giving me some of your time this evening. And don't forget to do something nice for somebody. Random acts of kindness really do save lives. And with that being said, we are out of here. Have a good night, my friend. And don't forget, you're always welcome. Have a good night.